All right, let's see. Are you not on track to hit your big annual goal? You're not on track to hit your big annual goal, and you're starting to get a little stressed out, a little depressed because you set some gigantic, huge goal for the year and you're not on track to hit it. If you find yourself in that situation, we're 4 months into the year, we're a third of the way into the year. So if you had a goal to close 12, as an example, you should have already closed four. If you had a goal to close 12 for the year, you should have closed four. If you had a goal to close 24, you should have already closed eight if you're tracking that way. And if you haven't done one of those goals, if you haven't closed your four or your eight in my example, then you're probably feeling a little bit of stress. And I'd like to chat about that for a few minutes if that's something you'd like to talk about and figure out how to reframe that so you can re-energize yourself. Then you're in the right place. Let's chat. Hi, welcome to the RAMS Agents Production Coaching Call. The goal of the call is to help you sell more homes by maximizing your repeat and referral closings by implementing the Referral Agent Mastery System into your practice. My name is Mike Cerrone, co-founder of RAMS Agents, and my co-host is Angela Newman, a master trainer of RAMS Agents. Hello, Angela. How are you today?
Good morning. I'm glad you guys are here. Glad to be here.
It's good to have you as well, Angela. All right, let's go ahead and hop into this hot topic. We'll just talk about it for a few minutes, just this idea of how to kind of reset your goals for the year, for achieving your goals. First of all, let's start off with that premise. Uh, at the beginning of the year, when we're coming around in December and we're coming into January, if you can kind of put your mind back to that time, you're thinking about the new year, you're all excited, you're creating this big, audacious goal, which you should do, and you're setting it up, and you're setting up your goal sheet, you're setting up your wall chart, you're setting up your affirmations, all to be targeted in on that. And if you've been able to stay on track, you're feeling pretty darn good this first part of the year. Again, we're 4 months in, a third of the year in right now. But if you haven't, if things aren't on track and you can see and anticipate that you may not be able to hit that goal, the problem a lot of people have, and you may or may not have this, is that you start to feel a little depressed. You start to feel like there's no way I can hit that goal. Why am I even trying? Some people just give up. They'll give up on the year. And I don't want that to happen to you. So that's why I want to talk about this challenge of resetting. And I'm going to give you a solution in a minute. First of all, I'd just like to know in the group, has anybody experienced that? Have you looked at your goals and go, how am I supposed to hit this thing? Anybody feel that? Just me? Good. Anybody
No,
else?
Yeah,
I'm
that was
I'm missing my goal for sure, but I'm not getting discouraged, I should say. So I certainly want to reset and and get to the goal, but I'm not discouraged.
Good. Blake, hey, since I got you, what is the goal that you have for the year and how many closings have you had so far?
Well, let's have a quick look at my chart. Um, there are 25 boxes on this chart. I have two closings so far. And here we are at the end of April. I need to have a lot more closings. My goal is 25 closings, 25 families served.
Yes. By the way, I like the way you've rephrased that. The families served. Um, Now, if we just take and extrapolate, you've got your two closings that you've had so far in 4 months, and if you just stay on that pace and do two closings every 4 months, you'll only hit six for the year.
That's right.
That doesn't stress you out a little bit?
I guess I've been in sales a long time. As you know, before I was a realtor, and I I've been around long enough to know that a lot of times you don't know where that next deal is coming from. I happen to have several in the pipeline, so I'm really excited about that. But yeah, I'm not stressed that I'm going to end up with six closings. I am confident that I will have more than that.
Excellent. Excellent. I love the optimism. And And that's good. That's fantastic. And stay focused. I'm going to give you a reframe in a minute. I'm trying to show people uh, what they may be. I'm trying to demonstrate what people may be experiencing out there. And I appreciate you sharing and playing along with me, Blake. Angela, you were about to share something. What do you have?
Well, I was just going to share that last year I was very stressed because I didn't hit my goal and it was a stressful year because of that.
Hmm. So,
This year I'm feeling much better though.
well, let's talk about the differences. Again, that's what we're trying to do is share with people and give them some ideas of how to get through this. What was your goal last year? And then what happened that was stressing you out? Let's talk
hmm
about last year.
Last year my goal was 8 and I hit 4.
Hmm. Yeah. So you hit half of the goal, and so that was stressing you out.
Exactly. Yes. And I was going through a lot of changes too because I went from a salaried position a little bit through the year, and that was added to the stress of, okay, I no longer have this salary. So I'm on my own now, kind of thing.
Yeah. So tell me how that has changed this year. You said you're not feeling as stressed this year. So tell me what's the goal
Mhm,
for the year? How are you
mhm.
doing as far as being on track, and why is it less stressful this time?
Well, I last year I would not say it went to waste because I put a lot of systems into place and it shows this year. So this year my goal is 12 and my first quarter my goal was just 2 because it was winter and I just from experience I know that spring and summer and fall are the best months. And so this quarter, my goal is 4. And as of right now, so I had 2 closed last quarter. And as of right now, I have 4 solid in the pipelines. I have 1 closing this week. I have another one under contract. And then I have 2 listings going up this month. So,
Yeah, that's fantastic. So, what do you attribute that to? Is there anything you're doing that's different that's making it work this year versus last year?
sure. So I put a lot of the systems in place that we use for RAMS. I've done some events, did an in-person event, then giveaway events, also email newsletter, and just, it's most of it is coming from my PCSOI, but a little bit is coming from third-party lead sources. So,
Cool. Angela, thank you so much for sharing where you're at and how things are going. And I'm glad to hear that it's a stronger track this year. Not only stronger track, a bigger goal, right? So that's cool. That's cool that it's coming along well. Um, well, we've got a couple other people here. Let me just ask if anybody else wants to share. If anybody wants to share what their goal is for the year and how close they're getting to the goal, I'll give you an opportunity to do that here for a minute.
Hey, sorry, just getting settled in here.
Hey, Tristan.
Um, yeah, so my goal is to sell 100 homes, and but before that, it's to knock 40,000 doors. And I was feeling a bit discouraged in February and March, but since April has come and I've started to actually get back on the doors and prospecting, I'm not feeling uh, how I was in the first few months, kind of like, dang, how am I going to hit this? And now I'm just focused on, okay, if I just take care of my knocks, the closings and the transactions will take care of themselves. So I'm realizing like, okay, my plan didn't really get started in January. But now that it's more warm, I can execute on what I've set for myself for this year. So I'm feeling great.
Excellent. Hey, Tristan, how many closings have you had year to date?
One,
One. So you have got to be massively stressed, right?
I
Because
was
the
for a
goal is
bit,
a
but
hundred, right? And you've got one for the first 4 months. That's stressful. Yeah. Anybody else feel that? I mean, I know this is not an uncommon situation in real estate or any other field. And that's why I want to address it. I don't want to leave y'all hanging out there and get all depressed or frustrated, etc. I want you to plug in. Now, Tristan, you and Angela have both brought up the idea of seasonality, right? There's a seasonality to our business in that it's not constant. The odds of us closing the exact same number of closings every single month for an entire year is pretty small because of the seasonality. And Angela mentioned that she had her first quarter was 2, and then her second quarter is 4. She's kind of structured it throughout the year. She realizes it's not going to be a complete even balance. And that's true. And that is true. And you can plan that into your system when you're putting together a monthly closing chart. That's one way that people will handle that. However, you're pretty far off on your goal there. And again, I want to just bring that up. And I'm going to share an idea here in a second that I hope will help get you through that. To again get retargeted on the goal. I really like the fact also, I'll say one other thing here, Tristan. I really like the idea that you're going to focus on the actions that will lead you to the closing, these leading indicators. So the door knocks in this case, the number of knocks, the actions you can take today that will lead you to where you want to go, in this case, the closing. And so, yes, we're tracking, and you're tracking those leading indicators, right, Tristan? You know how many you're doing each day. You know how many contacts you're making, how many people are talking to you, how many leads you're finding. That will help motivate and keep you in the game too, to get you to your goal. So good job. Super excited to hear how you're doing on the doors. And in case you all missed it, Tristan said 40,000 door knocks. That is awesome. And by the way, you may or may not know, he's now out there performing. It was cold this year, but within the last week, he has been knocking several times. He's knocked 200 doors a day. Did you knock 300 doors on one day, Tristan?
Not quite, but I'll get there. I was close.
Just missed, just
Yeah.
shy of it. Yeah. Yeah, well, we're excited for you, and we know you're going to plug in. And I have an answer for you here in just a minute. I know I'm kind of dangling it out there, but there's a reason I'm doing that. Yevon, I see you're on. I don't know if you can participate. Do you want to share with us what your goal is for the year and closings, and what how many you've had so far?
Oh, hi. Sorry, I'm driving. Yeah, I'll be without camera. Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, for this year, the goal is 75 deals. And I didn't check yet, like, but I think like I closed only this year, maybe around 22, 24, something like that.
You've only hit 22 or 24 so far this year?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're falling way behind. Actually,
So-
you're right on track. If we were to take your goal and divide it by a third, because we're a third of the way through the year, you're right on track. So Yevon, congratulations. You're rocking and rolling. And the thing I'm going to share with you may or may not help, but that's impressive. And I think you just inspired the rest of us to keep rocking. Good job, Yevon.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. And this week kind of gonna be busy for me because like I didn't have like last couple weeks any closings, and attorneys put like all 4 closings and this kind of few days, like today too, tomorrow too. So kind of busy days. Plus like, you know, regular showing, so kind of feel stressed a little bit.
Yeah, your pace is that you need to close right around 6 or 7 a month. If we were, again, just to take the annual goal and divide by 12. And it sounds like you're doing that, right?
Yeah, so far kind of like I keep the at least kind of like one kind of like a client, I mean, under the contract a week. So at the beginning of the kind of like this year, I have like each week one by one the, you know, the contract. So I mean, some of the weeks I missed, but I double like, you know, next week if I've been like on vacation. And so far I'm tracking kind of like how many clients I put under the contract. And I didn't check all, I mean, because it's, you know, some of them like still kind of in contingent, like an attorney review and things like that. But yeah, probably like I can at least like meet my last year goal, at least kind of like be close to like 50, like 56 closings. But again, I want to kind of like get 75.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is good. And I appreciate you sharing. And I want to hone in on one of the things you said there. So you said your goal is to put under contract one person per week. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Yeah. And if we do that, we got 52 weeks in the year. That would get you right up to your goal of, and they all close. That would get you up to your 50. And that's what you're saying. That's kind of your minimum. And yet,
Yes.
obviously, you must be closing slightly more than that. My point is this, you have this idea in your mind. Everybody pick up on what Yevon was saying, that he's doing it weekly. He's got a weekly goal. His weekly goal is to put one under contract. Yes?
Yeah. Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, by the way, how awesome is this? What a great lead in. That's kind of my idea that I want to share with you, is to start focusing on a smaller time frame and therefore a smaller goal and something more manageable, that'll allow you to re-engage no matter where you are on your bigger picture of your goal chart for the year. Okay. And so Yevon really brought that home in a great way. Thank you so much, Yevon, for sharing. Uh, and as you can see, it can work.
Yeah.
I couldn't have planned out any better. Thank you for sharing, Yevon. That was awesome.
You're welcome.
Let me give you this idea that I want you to play with, and that is this. Take your annual goal and divide by 12. Okay, so take your annual goal and divide by 12 to get down to that monthly. So let's just kind of walk through each of them. So for Angela, as an example, I'm just kind of reading across my screen here. For Angela, you had 12 for the year, and so it's one a month. Now, Angela took the next level, by the way. She's actually advanced because she's been doing this a long time. So she's actually built in seasonality. But I don't want you to worry about that right now. What I want you to do is just take the total goal and divide by 12. And so for Angela, it's one closing a month. That's something you can kind of get your hands around. You can kind of appreciate, you can understand. One closing sounds a lot easier than 12. And you don't have to wait till the end of the year to find out if you did it. You'll know if you did it in the next 30 days, right? Because we're about to roll into a new month. If you set your goal for your one closing for the month, boom, you're ready to rock, you're ready to roll, you're going to be on track. And Yevon was showing, by the way, what he did, but his goal is so big, he divided by 50 for the 50 weeks in the year to go into. He has one goal, a goal of one under contract per month, per week, which therefore what he believes will translate into one closing per week, right? See how he's taken the big goal, shrinking it down into a smaller bit of time. And he doesn't have to wait till the end of the year to find out if he's going to hit his 50 or his 75. He's going to know right away, am I on track or not? Okay, and that's keeping him more accountable. Blake, your goal is 25 closings in the year. So if we take the 25 and we divide by 12, it's basically 2 a month. Now, if you focus on closing 2 this month, this upcoming month, that will get you in the cycle. It'll get you in the cycle. You may or may not hit your 25 for the actual calendar year of 2025, but if you get in cycle and you're closing 2 a month, 2 a month, 2 a month, 2 a month, and that becomes your knowledge base, your habit in your head, like this is what I do. It becomes your identity. I close 2 a month, right? I close one every 2 weeks would be the other way to focus on it. Or I put one every 2 weeks under contract, or I take one listing every 2 weeks as an example in your head. If you start to get that in your mind and becomes part of your essence, boom, it just becomes natural for you to kick that out. You may or may not hit over the period of 2025, but let's say you started today and you were doing 2 a month, 2 a month, 2 a month, 2 a month. Well, over the next 12 months, you'll hit your 25.
Yeah, that's a great reset. Is don't get overwhelmed because we're obviously a third of the way through the year. Don't get overwhelmed with that annual deal that I put together at the beginning of the year. but instead start where I am today and get to my productivity that I'm looking for on a smaller measurement scale. Like
And
you said,
quicker.
every 2 weeks or quicker, yeah, or two a month, which is exactly the number I need. And I love
Exactly.
that because you're right. If I can get to that as my regular pace, and that's just who I am, that's what I do. Hey, that's a great place to be, and I'll just keep on doing that until I need to step it up to 3 a month and so forth.
And we can take a clue, a cue from Yevon there, and for you, Blake, and say one every 2 weeks,
Hmm.
one blank. You could say one closing. You could say one under contract. You could say one new client. You could say one, and that'll lead you into it. Yes.
Yes,
And I would pick
yes,
one of those that you feel the most comfortable with. I like the leading indicators, right? You're picking up one new client, one new listing, one new buyer agency, etc.
yeah.
That because that'll lead into everything else. And then Tristan stepped it back further even to how he's going to do that. Um, but if you focus on that, I think it'll make it a little more manageable and be able to reset for this mid-year. Yeah. Let's talk to Tristan if he's still with us. Tristan, you've got this goal of 100, and you got to feel like you're behind because you are. I mean, that's just the facts. But what we can do is we can reset this, we can restructure it. So if you take 100 and you divide by 12, it's basically 8. And if we take that 8 and then we could divide that down to a week, you got two a week is what you would be focusing on. You'll know within the next 7 days whether you hit that or not, right? And the beauty of it is the next week you can just hit the reset button. Okay, now I'm coming up on, I got to do 2 this week. Does that make
Mhm.
sense, Tristan?
Yeah,
What do you think about that?
yeah, it's a good piece to add. But right now I'm just tunnel focused on just hitting my 40,000 and letting the rest forward in May. So I look at it like I got a good few months coming up of warm weather and more daylight. So it's just go time for me now to just execute on that, and the closings and the transactions and all of that. That'll come as a result, but I just got to prioritize and start my day with door knocking and add everything else after that.
100%. And the best part of that is by doing all that door knocking, you're starting early, you're getting into it, you're rocking a couple hundred door knocks a day. Your efficiency and your ability to find those leads, your skill set is going to all rise. Everything is going to rise and increase by you getting hyper focused on that. And that's true for all of us. If you get hyper focused on something, you cannot, it's almost impossible to fail. Our biggest problem is we get distracted. When I look back at the big successes I've had, it's all been when I narrow, so tight that people think I'm crazy because I'm going after just one thing and I'm ignoring everything else.
Mm.
Uh, and so Tristan sounds a little nuts to some of us, like, you're knocking on doors? What are you doing? And how many doors are you knocking on? How many hours? He's spending like 3, 4, 5 hours a day, right, Tristan?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, well, why are you doing that? Well, because Tristan's hyper focused, he's narrowing in his focus. It's going to be almost impossible for him not to be successful if he continues to do that over and over and over and over again. Would we all agree? Yeah. Cool. So Tristan, my only recommendation for you again, so that you stay motivated to knock on those doors, is reset that goal down to that smaller increment. I am out here knocking on the door so I can find my 2 listings per week. I'm out here knocking on the door so I can find my 2 listings this week. I'm out here knocking on the door so I can find my 2 listings this week. If you do that, all of a sudden it becomes manageable. It becomes possible rather than I am out here to close 100 transactions this year. I'm how am I going to get to 100 transactions? That's so big. Does that make sense?
Yeah, perfect sense. Thanks, Mike.
You bet. Yeah, it's just something I thought that might be helpful for us to talk about today to just get a restructure. Was this helpful to get a refocus? Yeah. All right, cool. All right, so I'm gonna wrap that part up unless anybody has any questions about it. Any questions before we go on to the next topic? Thank you, everybody, for sharing. Real excited about you going after your goals and making it happen this year. Um, the final part of all that is what Angela said with seasonality. Don't forget seasonality. We are now going into the meat of the market, or the big part of the market. Get in front of your people. Don't get discouraged. Get out there, do what Tristan's doing, knocking on doors. Go out there, talk to your people in your PCSOI. Get in front of them as much as possible. As just, aren't you seeing signs going up and down now? I mean, we're into the market. We're into the market. All right, let's do this. Let's switch gears now. Let's go into, first of all, I'm halfway through, so I want to open up a question. I want to do this more often. Who has a question about their production that they want us to address? Are you running into any challenges? You're running into any problems? Having any successes? Anything you would like to share with the group, or you would want to get some feedback from the group? We're all right here. Instead of me directing where we're going, you tell me, what would you like to talk about? Here's your opportunity. Good luck at the closing, Yevon. Yevon's going to a closing. He's got his one a week. Woo! Woo.
Mike, I was trying to remember if we had recorded this this meeting when you shared with us kind of the aftermath of this house listing that you had, where you had multiple offers, and how you would go back to the offerers and speak to them again, and you basically amped the whole thing up. It was much like an auction. I know you're not an auctioneer, so you weren't auctioning, but you were operating kind of in that manner. You kept it, ramping it up. Do you happen to know if we recorded that? And if so, can which reference when we did that? Or
Great
maybe
question.
even, do you know when that closing was? Or when that went
I'd
under
have to look
contract?
back, Blake, and I'll try to see. I think we did talk about it, but I'll address some of that here real quick.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, it's a good point.
I have a listing, a land listing that I'm going to be working on and meeting with the seller this weekend, and I'm wanting to kind of put that out as a possible way that we work.
Yeah, let's talk about
Yeah.
that. Is that
Yeah.
good? Is that a good topic for everybody? You want to talk about how to bring a listing to the market and try to generate multiple offers, and see if you can't get some excitement going to get a fast sell and at a great price for your clients.
This is the listing appointment, Blake.
It is. It's a listing appointment, a referral. I have every expectation that, I mean, the way the seller is talking to me, I don't think I think he's expecting us to have it listed pretty quickly after after we meet. So we'll see.
Blake, it's funny that you say all this because I was just thinking about this over the last couple of days. My mom had some property she wanted me to sell, and so I went out on Facebook Marketplace, which I've never done before, and I put a couple of her items out there. And one of them we sold right away, and I ended up bidding it up between buyers, and the final price was like 50% higher than our asking price. And I'm like, huh, this technique just works. I guess for anything.
Yeah.
I wasn't even trying to do it. It just kind of happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. It's not a bidding process. They don't have an auction bidding process at Facebook Marketplace. You just set a price and that's it. But because of the way things happen and transpired, if you have a lot of people interested, this will work. If you don't, it won't. But there's a way to try to create that. If there is that interest in the market, and we'll talk back to real estate, if there is the interest in the property, there's a way to goose that up. And that's what we'll talk about here real quickly. And again, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's in one of our past recordings, but I don't know which one. It's definitely over the last 30 days. So what you're going to do is, first of all, you're going to want to share what your strategy is with your client, with the seller. And in all of this, I want you to make sure that you downplay the fact that it might not work. You say, hey, I want to try something if it's okay with you. Okay. You got to get them and their buy-in of what's going on. And they have to understand that it's possible and the upside, but also that it might not work. And if it doesn't, you'll move on. Had that happen a couple of years ago when I was toying around with a property. I tried to do this approach and it didn't work. We ended up selling the property, but it didn't work. Sometimes it won't work. So you got to let them know, hey, it might not work. I give a story. You know, I have stories. So I give them a story when it worked, a story when it didn't work. Okay, that really helps to cement it. But then I would basically give them the benefits because everybody wants the benefits first. So, hey, Blake, would it be okay if I talk to you about an idea that if it works out, it might generate multiple buyers for you, create kind of an auction atmosphere, and the result would be that you could get the highest price for the property, maybe even higher than our asking price, and basically get the property sold for the highest price possible. Would you like me to share how that might work?
Yeah, that sounds good, Mike. I'm all ears.
Notice how I'm downplaying it a bit. I'm trying to get their buy-in. I'm not going to say, hey, this is a great way that I can sell your home for more money and get it faster than you possibly could think of, and we'll just have so many. But I'm not going that direction. That's not going to work. And if the thing bombs, you will be out on your ear and faster than the deal fell. I mean, the thing didn't come together. So you got to really kind of, in my opinion, you've got to just kind of slow step it in. Here's an idea. Can I share it with you? It may work, it may not. If it does work, here's the upside. And if it doesn't work, it's okay. It only took me a little bit of extra work, and I'm happy to do that for you.
That's the way to do it.
I'm
Yeah.
going to do a lot of extra work to set this thing up. Okay. So now, in the interest of time, I'll try to speed through the idea, but it's basically what you're going to do is a coming soon. Does everybody have coming soon in their market? You have it in your MLS now? Okay, so it's become a popular idea. I heard about it a long time ago. I'm trying to remember the first agent, the lady who I heard that from first. I was down by Florida. Darn it. Anyway, she had this idea. She shared with me the coming idea. Actually, she's actually in the Carolinas. Oh, that's so bad. Remember everybody's face, but I can't remember their name. But anyway, she's been doing it a long time, and she's the first time I heard about coming soon. It was before the MLSs were doing it. She actually created a website, and she was putting together the idea, and then she was sharing it with other agents. But that anyway matriculated in, so now we all have this coming soon. My point is, these ideas tend to come from the top agents experimenting with stuff. So the idea of a coming soon is that you tease the market, okay? Instead of just taking your listing and throwing it out on the market, which will work, that's worked, we did it forever. But instead of doing that, what you do is you just tease the market. You just let the other agents and you let the buyers in the market know this property is going to be coming into the market soon. Your MLS will have a limitation on how long you can do that. I believe mine is 7 days. So I used all 7 days in the last one that I did. And I said, hey, market, here's what we got coming to the market. This is the day it's going to be available to show. You cannot show it before then. You cannot send us an offer before then. I also structured the whole thing in the private comments. And I'm trying to remember if I put them in the public comments as well, but I know I put them in the private comments to all the agents. The property is coming to the market on this date. You can start showings on this date. And that was typically a Friday. No offers will be reviewed until Monday per the seller's request or seller's rules, or I'm trying to remember how I phrased it. But the seller is the one who has to make that. That's why you got to talk to the seller beforehand. They've got to be the one outlining, agreeing with all this structure. That's a key because those early offers I got when I did this were low. They were terrible. But I leveraged those to get better offers. And the fact that I had time between Friday and Monday to work on these offers is what made it all happen. Okay, there was a deadline. They all had to get their offer in by Monday at, I can't remember what time, Monday at noon, I think I did. Okay, and I said then everything will be presented to the seller between Monday at noon and Tuesday, 24 hours later, Tuesday at noon. And we'll get you an answer back. So be sure to give us an acceptance deadline of Tuesday at noon. I'm instructing this all in the MLS, private comments. You had to have it mapped out in your head of what you want to have happen. What you want to have happen is you tease the property from Friday to Friday, maybe Saturday to Friday, whatever the 7 days is, where you're just showing people what's going on. You say, hey, no showings until Friday. And then when you go on the market on Friday, and then you have showings Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then all offers, and by the way, offers will start rolling in through that entire amount of time. And then on Monday at noon is when you're going to present to your seller. And then the next part is Tuesday is at noon is the acceptance. Does that make sense what the flow is? The time flow? You have to be able to have that time flow and explain it to your seller. Good if you map it out on a piece of paper, the timeline. This is when we're doing this is when we're doing that, this is when we're doing that. I always flip pages over and just start drawing. Just draw the timeline. Here's what we're starting. Here's where we're ending. Here's how it's going to go in the middle. All right. So that's the process and the flow. Now, if your property is well positioned in the market price-wise and everything else, you'll get a lot of activity. This property we had was a fix-up, so it doesn't have to be a perfect property, all dolled up. This was the opposite end of the spectrum. In fact, I think we kind of priced it a little high, to be honest. And that was okay because I just generated all this interest. The other thing is I like to be very, try to think of a better word, but I like to just describe the property for what it exactly is, rather than trying to flower it up or sugar it up or put it in AI. I put my description in AI and it started lying. It started saying this brand new incredible property, and I'm like, that's not what this is. It's a 60-year-old house that hasn't been updated in 60 years. So I just said that in my description. I just described the true nature of what this home was, and I think the market accepted that way better than me doing this flowery BS language, right? So I think that's helpful. Just another little side note. Anyway, if that all lines up right, what will happen is you'll start to get interest. In that first day, we had a ton of showings. And by the way, I was in my market had already started slowing down. I just looked at another area in my market. So that happened 2 months ago. And I just looked at another area where they're all townhomes, and the prices in the area have fallen $50,000 from the peak that happened about 1.5 years ago. My point is, my market is declining. Even though people don't say that around here, they don't think it, maybe they feel it's flattened out. I'm seeing a decline. My point is, I brought it into the market in that situation and did okay. All right. This strategy helped to find and kind of percolate up some people. The last part, or the last element of this, is that the real talent is how can you bring people along so they bid more? Okay. And some people might tell you to play games, make things up. I don't do that. I just tell everybody exactly what's going on. The only thing is I may or may not tell them immediately, right? I'll decide when I'm going to tell them, but I'm going to tell everybody, hey, I just got another offer over here, it's better than yours. I'll tell them that, okay? You have to be real careful, and I don't want to get into it. You be sure to talk to your broker and attorney and legal advice, etc. But in my world, if the offers are below my asking price, I never tell them the number. I only tell them that I have an offer. However, for me, once I go above the asking price and I will tell them the number to try to bump them up higher and higher. Every single decision before I do it though, I'm bouncing it off my seller. This is a big topic. I'm trying to squeeze it all into 15 minutes. I'm going to tell my seller what my strategy is and what my plan is at every step. I'm calling them up saying, hey, this is what I'm going to do next. I just want to make sure that sounds good to you. Here's what could happen, right? Here's the upside, here's the downside. Do I have your permission to move forward? And what I found was I ended up doing a lot of that through text messages, because people like to communicate through text. But I would just say, hey, here's what's happening. Here's what I plan to do. Do I have your approval to move forward? And then I would usually get, yeah, go for it. You know, that kind of thing. Good. And then I would go and do it. But that's the key. I know I kind of just splattered it out there. You can ask me questions, but the key is to make sure that everybody's in the loop. So by the end, they knew what was all the participants knew what was going on. At the end, I thanked all the participants for being there. I want to treat them with respect. My goal is to really win for my client, but I'm going to share the information into the market that's going to help my client get the best deal. I'm just going to keep all the players involved. For instance, you said, how did I create the auction atmosphere? For instance, I ran a second round. I got to noon and I had several players that were playing really strong. And so what I did was I said, hey, we've got some really close offers here. We're going to extend our I'm not thinking of all the terms today. We're gonna
Your decision deadline that you'd made, right?
My
Yeah.
presentation deadline. Thank you, Blake.
There you go.
We're gonna do presentations in 2 hours. I think I bumped to 2 hours. If you want to change, modify, or send us your best and final offer. And at that point, I was above my asking price. I said, I currently have a price of this. And again, I confirmed that with my seller. I said, I've got a price of this. If you want to beat it, if you want to make a better offer, then send it to us by this new deadline. And I didn't just send that to the 2 players. I had 2 players that were really starting to push up. I sent it to everybody, all the people who had been participating. I had 9 buyers that were participating and 2 were really going after it at the end. And what happened was then a third one came flying in and knocked all the others out.
Wow.
Okay. So, we've been talking about that on this call a lot, that things aren't over until they're over. Don't rule people out until it's over. If you can create an opportunity from them. And don't you think you're out of it until it's completely over. Okay. I just learned that again this week, or this last couple of days, playing with this sell on the auction on Facebook. Same thing. People came from left field to finally get the place, to buy this little piece of property, little item. It wasn't somebody that was in it at the beginning. So almost identical now that I think about it. I had 2 people bidding, and then a third person came flying in from out of nowhere, because I was notifying everybody of what their opportunity to get back in the game, right? Have you ever had a buyer and they're like, oh, who won? They paid how much? Oh, I would have done that. Have you ever had that? Well, this kind of allows them to get that extra opportunity to come back in. Now, they don't know if you're telling the truth or lying or whatever, because I know that came up later with one of the winners, but with the winner. But like, I know I told everybody exactly what was going on. I can document every single thing that was going on here. And my seller was part of the entire process, right? And it's easy to keep straight because you're just completely saying what's going on. This is the facts. Am I helping? I'm trying to do it without giving too many particulars, but any questions?
No, this is great. I've taken a lot of notes, and I'm gonna watch this again before I meet with my client. But that's right on what I was looking for, how you executed that, and all these nuances, like what you're mentioning, that you explain to your seller every step what you're doing, very important. And then the way you extended your deadline, because I knew you had some sort of mechanism there. You got all your offers in, your initial offers. You actually evaluated them, recognized there were several that were pretty close, that were strong players, told everybody, here's where we are, and we're extending our deadline before I present. So that's good. Even though your seller was aware of what was going on, you weren't doing a full presentation, I guess. Maybe you were. I don't know if you were or not. But
I want to also share, this is such a fun topic. But again, I advise everybody to talk to your broker and attorney. I'm not giving any kind of legal advice. Just trying to share how I go about this, creating this auction atmosphere. You want to leverage every win into a bigger win. Even if it doesn't look like a win, a little baby win is something you can leverage. And let me tell you what I mean by that. In this particular situation, I had 9 buyers, but they didn't all come in at the same time. Okay. They kind of tripped in one at a time, and they would call me up or text me. People do texting a lot now. And they basically would say, hey, is this property still available? I say, yes. But I didn't just in there. I'd say, yes, but I've got a lot of interest in the property. Okay. And then when I got my first offer, it was low. It was really low. But then the next person would say, hey, I got a buyer who's interested in that. Is it available? I'd say, yes, but I've already received an offer. But I'm not going to be presenting until Monday at noon. You still have an opportunity. And I would either say that or they would ask. They'd say, well, can we still get an offer? I'd be like, yeah, remember it's Monday at noon. I'm not presenting anything till Monday at noon. I've just received an offer. And I did get people go, oh, well, how much is the offer? Say, I can't tell you that.
yeah, I
Anyway,
was about to ask, how did you, because the way you presented that, I'm thinking if I'm on the other end of that, of course I'm going to try to find out, where the offer is, and you're under no obligation. In fact, you are under an obligation to take care of your client, not me. So, um,
here, I just thought of the
yeah.
phrase that I used that helped to promote the other offers. So they would say, hey, have you received any offers? And I would say, yes, I've received an offer, but I encourage you to make an offer. Yes, I've received an offer, but I encourage you to make an offer. I am not telling them anything about the original offer, and I'm asking them to bring me another offer. They can interpret that any way they want. But my job is to promote as many offers as possible for my seller, yes? I'm telling you, that's a golden phrase now that I think about it. That was a really great one in the early process. And I want to explain this to everybody. My transaction, the lowest offer to the highest final accepted offer, the difference was $130,000. $130,000. Huge. There's like a 25% difference in the final price. So that's what I was trying to say. The early offers that came in, they were crappy lowball offers. That's what people would label them. I didn't label them that way. I said, I got an offer. My client's like, I can't take that. I'm like, I know. Just let me do my work. I'm going to help you out. We're going to see what's going to happen. And maybe it works, maybe it don't. Maybe you have to accept this offer. I don't know, but let me play the game. Can I play the game? They're like, yeah, like, let's play the game. Here's how we're going to do the game. Let me go out and let everybody know that we got this offer. Can I do that? Yeah. Boom. And then I did that. And then all of a sudden I got another offer that was also low, but it was above that one. I didn't tell them the number. It's just now I'm getting activity, right? Because they know there's another offer, they're going to offer a better offer, right? Anyway, so the offers were coming in all spotty. And then by the time I was getting to the end, people would contact me and say, hey, you got anything going on that property? I'm like, yeah, I've already got 5 offers, but I encourage you to make one. And they're like, well, what's the best offer? I said, I can't tell you that because I can't. Now, again, for me, I've already told you my strategy. Under price, I'm not going to tell them the amount, my offers. However, once I start to get above asking price, I may throw out the number because I want them to pay me more than asking price. I don't want them messing around below asking price. Okay. And that's what I'm describing to my seller. My seller gives me permission. And that's what ended up happening. I ended up going above, then above, then above, then above, then above, you know. But if you really look at it, I was starting below, below, to my where I wanted to be, above, 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 and above, and above. It was a tremendous amount of work. I was going full steam for the entire, I didn't like working that weekend, by the way, but I was going the full steam for the entire period of time, just 72 hours, whatever it was. Yeah. But if in retrospect, I got the property sold really fast. We closed in 11 days. We got 103% of our asking price. My seller was ecstatic. That helped with everything else. The inspection went a lot easier. Well, not really. Well, I was able to leverage the terrible inspection situation because I had all that excitement. I was able to put a second buyer in backup position, which helped me leverage the first buyer to push through the inspection issues. I don't like backup offers, just me, second position offers. I did it on this one because I had a feeling that buyer was going to mess around with me, the first buyer, and the winner. And sure enough, they did in the inspection. They gave us a 42 item inspection notice, just threw the entire kitchen sink at us. That was another negotiation. I'm going a lot of time, but that was another negotiation technique. They threw everything at us. I talked to my seller. My seller's panicked, doesn't want to do any of that. I said, great, let me do what I want. Let me try something. I said, let me tell them we're not going to do anything. And he's like, are you sure? Like, yeah. Well, can't they walk away? Yep. And I told him they can walk away. This could completely blow up in our face. And he's like, well, I said, do you want to do the 42 items? No. Well, let me talk to him. And so the other agent calls me up and they're shrinking they're running everything right up to the deadline, which was a mistake for them, but they did. They ran right up to the deadline. They said, all right, what are you guys going to do? And I said, no, that's not the way it happened. I sent back the inspection notice saying, not going to do anything, 0. And he immediately called me up within a couple minutes and said, Mike, you're not going to do anything? That's right. Blake knows my secret. You don't say anything after that. Right? You have to pause and let them simmer in it. And that's exactly what happened in that inspection notice. Remember, they gave us a 42 item list. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars of junk. And I just said, no, we're not going to do anything. Within about 30 seconds, maybe 60 seconds, felt like forever for him and me, I'm sure. But he goes, will you at least do one thing? And he named the one thing. So I found the one thing that they were concerned about, and the rest of it was baloney, was BS. They were just trying to run us down on price. Okay. And so we focused on that one thing, and we actually solved it with a small credit, and that was it. It was done. And my seller was ecstatic.
Yeah, and you had the power of that backup in that case, that you could go to your contracted buyer and say, we're not doing it.
Exactly.
Because you had somebody else waiting.
That's exactly right, Blake. And I mentioned that to the first buyer, buyer number 1, buyer number 2, first position.
Yeah, of course. They had to know that you could walk.
Buyer, I said, you guys can do whatever you want. I've got a second buyer under contract. So if yours falls apart, theirs automatically moves into first position because that's the way it reads. And just tell me what you want to do. You have first shot. I'm telling you, silence is the biggest negotiation win you'll ever learn. Once you master that, you'll be shocked what happens when you just because people's minds start flying. Yeah. Anyway, yes. And by the way, let me give you one more piece. Buyer number one, way better than buyer number two, as far as being able to close fast. It was like 50% down versus nothing down. But they don't know that. They don't know that. Right? That's why I say I disclose what I want to disclose. I don't have to tell them everything. I don't have to tell them anything. I'm going to share information with them. I'm going to let them know enough of the puzzle that they can put it together so they can win if they want to win. But I don't have to share everything. So my client and I know we want to close with number one. We'll close with two if we have to, but it's going to be a lot rougher road. And by the way, I'm trying to figure out what I can disclose and stuff. It would have actually been catastrophic for us to close with two because of the time. We didn't know it at that point, you know, because things are over a timeline. We didn't know why we were doing this, that it would have been a problem. But in retrospect, looking back, it would have been catastrophic. It would have, the whole thing would have crashed and burned because of a different variable I won't share. But we didn't know that. We just knew we were trying to get this done immediately for the best price with the best buyer. Boom. And what I'm trying to help you with is you've got this leverage opportunity. It only works if you have a lot of people interested and you're trying to generate or drum up that interest with the coming soon approach. So you're mapping this out for the seller. You're sharing what the pros are. And then what you've got to say at the end of that presentation, this is all the way back to the listing presentation. If it doesn't work, we'll just revert into a traditional sell. We'll just revert into a traditional sell. Y'all need any, have any questions? Angela, you want to throw anything in on top of this? I know you have a lot of things running through your head with all your experience.
The coming soon is a great tool. As far as the multiple offers, that depends on the property and the market that you're in. And so in a very big buyer's market, you're not going to get multiple offers usually. And so our theory was your first offer that you get was the best. But as the market changes, all the way to the far extreme seller's market where there's tons of multiple offers coming in. In my instance, I had a listing that I got 8 offers in, and the same thing happened. I got the real low ball offers at first, but then we had one person whose family member lived on the street, but she had to get pre-approved. Did we want to wait? She's not cash, lots of variables, but in the end, her motivation for buying it outweighed the risk of going with an investor. So every situation is going to be different. And as the market changes, what Mike said about kind of switching gears, if you have to, if you don't get that activity that you expected over the weekend, yeah, you just remove the clause and just go traditional and then switch gears with your, what you would normally do. But in this market, I do think that the strategy, if you can get at least 2 offers, it's huge. Still a great option.
Excellent points, Angela. Excellent points. That's the other little final part here is keep in mind that in the same city or same area or same county, you could have different markets within that county where some markets are really hot and other markets are really cold in the same time frame. So it's not like uniform. This one that we just did, my market's already sliding. We've got like over half the people are reducing their price. I just told you an example of these townhomes that have $50,000 reduction from the high to the low. The people that were trying to sell these 2 townhomes, they tried in the winter and both expired. And then they just came back in the spring and they both finally sold. But if you look at the top to the bottom in their asking prices, because I just looked at it last night, it was $80,000 from their very first asking price to where they finally sold for one, and the other was a 60,000 from the very top to the bottom. So those people had to move in the exact same market that I just told you. I had the 9 buyers in the same city, by the way. It's the same city. So you just be aware that there are hot and cold markets all around, and you have to be a chameleon and be flexible to what is happening in front of you. So don't just assume because you're in a slower market, you can't get multiple offers, or that you're in a hot market, you will get multiple offers. That's why you have to have that discussion at the beginning that anything could happen. Here's our strategy. Yeah. All right, good. So again, hopefully this has helped. We've eaten up all of our time. I appreciate you all. Let's wrap up our production call. Now let's go into our huddle for the day. And remember, in the huddle, we got 2 questions. What's the number one thing you did yesterday to move your business forward? What's the number one thing you're going to do today to move your business forward? Who would like to start?
Number one thing yesterday was I had 7 showings and I submitted an offer for one of the agents in my company is away on vacation, so I took one of her clients out to see some properties on the weekend. And yesterday we wrote an offer and put it in. And then the number one thing for today is my prospecting. So I'm here now, about to start my route with the doors.
Sweet. Good job, Tristan. What's your goal today for knocking doors? How many you want to hit?
I want to hit 200 today.
Woohoo! Look at them muscles. 200. How long do you think that'll take to hit those 200?
It'll take me 4 hours and a bit, so I'll have time, so it'll be
That's
good.
how dedicated Tristan is. Nice job, Tristan. Rock and roll. All right, good job. Good luck today. All right, who's next?
Okay, I'll go. So yesterday I did a lot of catch up, but I also went and put a sign in the yard and did a walkthrough of this lease listing that it's getting ready to go active. They still needed to do a couple of things, so I'm going to activate it today. So today, that's my big thing that I'm taking care of. But yesterday, I wanted to share that Sheila is still a part of this, but she's been working basically 3 positions with her company, and but she put her first buyer under buyer representation agreement and showed her first homes last night. So I helped walk her through all of that, and so that was really exciting.
That is exciting. Congratulations, Angela. So you're helping someone else succeed. That is awesome.
Way
Yeah.
to go, Anthony.
Cool. Cool. Good luck with that. I can't wait to hear more good news. Blake, what you got?
I love it. So yesterday, probably talking with this seller and setting our meeting time to walk this property, this land that he's got for sale, was my number one thing. And then today, I have not yet done a full recap video to publish on social media about the event, the goat event that we had the day before Easter. I'm going to get that video done, and also I've had some interaction with some of the guests that came, but there's a few I want to reach back out to. So there's probably 7 or 8 calls I need to make and just thank them again for coming. So I'm going to do that and kind of put a bow on that deal.
On the event. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful thing, the event, right? You got to invite people before the event. That's the power. You got to do the event. You got to meet everybody, have a blast. And then you can do this post-event reach out where you're reaching out again, another touch. So powerful to get all those touches in at this time of year and make sure they remember who you are and where you're at. I had just reached out to someone in my PCSOI. I didn't do it until the beginning of last month, March, so 30 days ago. And sure enough, I reached out to someone and they had just put their parents' home on the market like 45 days ago. And they're like, God, I wish I remembered you were in the business. And I'm like, well, I haven't been in the business for a long time. It's not your problem. It's my problem. I didn't reach out. So that was a huge mistake for me. Be in front of your people. Don't let them forget that you're in the business, right? Do not let them forget. It's your job, not theirs. Good job, Blake. Way to stay on top of that.
Way to go, Blake.
Let's see. So yesterday I made I made some phone calls out to my empty nesters, and I made a whopping 3 dials. 3 dials. I dialed 1, nothing. Dialed 2, nothing. Dialed 3, and had this great conversation with this gentleman, and we just kind of struck up a great conversation. We talked for maybe 15, 20 minutes. We're laughing and joking and just playing, having a blast. And he won't be moving for another 2 to 3 years, he says. But I know things happen faster than people expect. So I'm not saying, oh, well, that's it, goodbye. You're not doing something today, so goodbye. I'm like, hey, cool. So we just keep talking. I ask him if it's okay for me to keep up with him. He's like, oh yeah, 100%. I say, can I get your email address? He's giving me his email and phone number. And anyway, he's now on my nurture list. Remember, we talked about that PCSOI being at the bottom of the funnel, and then right above it is your nurture list. He's now gone into my nurture list. Anyway, that's the kind of thing that can work. Friday, I made 25 dials, and the day before, I think I hit 5. Same problem. Same issue. I made 5 dials, and I talked to this little old lady for probably 30 minutes. She was a blast. She's 84 years old. She works out 5 times a week with a personal trainer. I mean, it's inspiring. So anyway, get out there and talk to a lot of people. I guess that's my bottom line. And today I'm going to be doing like Tristan. I'm going to be out there, but I'm going to be phone dialing while he's door knocking. Although I don't think I'm going to get to 200. Tristan, I'm so impressed. Good job. All right, everybody, thank you so much. By the way, just real fast, was this helpful today, our topic, going through all the information? All right, you like this format?
Especially at the beginning, Mike, how you had your what you were about the bringing back into focus our goals for the year. I thought that was really cool.
Cool. Well, do that. Be sure to do that. Implement that this week so you get reinvigorated. Reset your goal timeline. Basically, all you're doing is playing with time. Bring it into a shorter time frame that's right in front of you. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for your time today. Good luck. And Blake, I have one question for you that you should ask on your listing appointment.
Okay.
Ready? Write this down. Here's the question. This is what I'm going to leave you all with. Ready? This is a beautiful home. Why would you ever leave it?
That's great.
See, that's not a question they would expect from a salesperson. Why don't you just stay here and remodel it or keep it and rent it out? Super, super powerful, because what's going to happen is they are going to push against that. They're going to say, well, I can't stay here because X. And now you found out their true motivation. I can't rent it out because Y. And Y is probably, I don't want to be a landlord. But they probably have already run through those questions. And now you're asking them, and you're not forcing it in as a salesperson. You're asking them to push against it. It's very powerful. By the way, I don't create any of this stuff. I just hear it from other people. Nothing is really new. We're just kind of digesting all this stuff from others. All right, anyway, try that. Hope it helps. Y'all have a fantastic and productive rest of your day. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Keep moving forward.